Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Stress and anxiety are no longer occasional. They have become part of everyday life. What if solution lies not in coping harder, but in rewiring how we think, respond, and perceive? For this 24th session of Thoughtful Thursdays, we are blessed to host BK Vidathri, a rare voice who seamlessly integrates science, logic, and spirituality. Sister Vidathri, an engineer, artist, meditation practitioner, corporate trainer, and a globally respected spiritual faculty from Brahma Kumaris, Om Shanti Retreat Centre. With her rare blend of logic and spirituality, science and consciousness, engineering precision, and Gita wisdom, she has conducted programs for leading ministries, corporates, educators, and global audiences. So, in this session, Brain Rewire, which is a guide to deal with stress and anxiety, Sister will guide the participants on understanding stress and anxiety at the levels of thought and awareness and how we can rewire them. So, without much further ado, I will hand it over to Sister Vidathri. So, over to you, Sister, and thank you very much for accepting our invite to be a guest speaker today. And
thank you, and a very warm good evening to all of you. As Sister was telling that stress has to do with our mind, but it does create an impact on our brain. It is as equally important to make your mind stress-free so as to be able to utilize your brain in a much better way to work with these God gifted resources. We don't realize the power of these resources until these resources actually start going wrong. When they're working as per our normal way, we feel, oh, it's okay, nothing special. When they start going wrong, then we start feeling the power of these and the loss that we have made through our decisions. So today we'll understand the science behind the wiring of brain and how we can actually rewire our brains to make ourselves happier, to make ourselves more mindful, right? So I'm sharing a PPT to discuss these topics to this topic today. Let us begin with some a minute of relaxation. If we are side by side engaged in something else, please draw your attention towards what you are thinking right now. Let all other thoughts submerge. Let my mind become completely aware of the present. Let me clear the clutter of my mind. Let me squeeze the sponge of my mind so that all other thoughts go away. And now I put that sponge of my mind, the squeezed one, in the present and allow that sponge to relax so that it completely absorbs the energy of the present moment. Allow your mind to be filled with thoughts of peace, Om Shanti. So with this, bringing our awareness to the present and making our brain completely conscious of what we are listening and what we are going to experience today, let us understand what is our brain, what is the anatomy of the brain, how does it function. So unlike other organs of the body, which are connected to other body organs through different tubes, through different channels. Brain is an organ that is connected to every other organ of the body, but it is not hardwired. There is no tube except for the brain stem that is going down the spine. There is no other physical connection of brain with other organs, but yet it is connected to every other organ. How? Let us see. First of all, let's see what's in the brain, and then we will see how it is connected to other organs. So as you can see, this is the structure of your brain. Your brain is vertically divided into two hemispheres, the right and the left. And each hemisphere has these different sections. So we have these, this is one sectional view of the left side of the brain. Similar section exists on the right side. So each lobe is divided into right and left hemisphere. So these lobes, the first one is the frontal lobe. This frontal lobe is responsible for functions of brain such as thinking, planning, problem solving. It is not just logical thinking, planning, it is also emotional center. It also deals with emotions, behavioral control, when you want to say stop, when you want to indulge, and also decision making. So this is the primary function of frontal lobe. Below that, you have the temporal lobe. Temporal lobe is responsible for retention, for memory, for understanding, for recognition, whether it is facial, whether it is hearing, whether it is speech. All these registers are, maintained in the temporal lobe. Then we have, yeah, if you have any questions, you can post it in the chat. Then we have the parietal lobe. So parietal lobe is somewhere here, and it is responsible for your perception, for object classification, for spellings, for knowledge of numbers, and visuospatial processing. Say if like I am sitting over here and this is, I mean, the next person is sitting 1 feet away. So this spacing, where is my boundary? I mean, this is the boundary of my body and everything else is outside my body. All this spacing, perceptions, object recognition, classification, all these functions are performed by the parietal lobe. Then we have the occipital lobe towards the back. And occipital lobe, the main function, as the name denotes, is for vision, visuals. So visual processing, color identification, all this is the function of the occipital lobe. And then we have a small cerebellum. The cerebellum has all the fine motor sensory option, all these functions, balance. So people who have Parkinson's, who are not able to perform, motory actions, their hands shake, it is because the cerebellum gets affected, the motory functions get affected. And then we have the brain stem. This brain stem, it regulates the body temperature, our heart rate, our swallowing, our breathing, all these functions going down, they are controlled by the brain stem. And this is the function, this is the structure of the brain. Now, what is the functional unit of the brain? How is the brain connected to other organs of the body? So a little information, because this will help us understand how the brain is wired or not wired, and we can rewire it. So the primary function unit of the brain is a neuron. Neurons are information messengers. So as you can see, like other body cells, neuron also has a cell body and a cell nucleus that you can see at the center. So that is the cell nucleus and then the cell body. But unlike other cells of the body, neuron is not of a very fixed shape or a fixed size. Its size varies and its shape extends beyond the cell body like a tail with some connections that it can make with other neurons. Now, what is happening inside the neuron? So you see this part, which is the sorry, this pink round part is the main cell body. The inside one is the nucleus, and the ones that are the tentacle-like things, right, extending out of the cell body, they are the dendrites. And then there is a tail, and on the tail you can see some yellow capsules. That is a protein. That tail is called the axon, and the yellow covering is a type of protein. And the tail also has some dendrites. Now what happens is, here you can see two different brain cells. They are given two colors just to make you understand how one cell and other cell are interacting with each other. So you have a yellow cell and you have a blue cell. So it is not yellow and blue inside the body. It is just to show you the connections. Now, the information is passed on from other neurons to this yellow neuron. It receives those informations through the dendrites of the cell body. So the cell body dendrites expand, and from wherever the information it is getting, the first information received processes through the neuron, travels through the cell body, through the tail, till the tail dendrites, and from there, that information jumps. You can see the zoomed version below, where the pink particles which show the information in the form of electrical signals, pulses, it is jumping from one neuron to the next one. And they are not physically connected. There is a gap in between. That gap is called synapse. So information from one neuron to another neuron passes through this synapse. And here is where the whole fundamental of brain rewiring exists. Why? Because this one yellow dendrite of the yellow neuron has multiple options. It has hundreds of neurons around it, and it can actually choose which particular neuron should I pass on this information to. And depending on this choice, different connections start existing in our brain. So how does the brain rewire? This technique medically is known as neuroplasticity. What does it mean? Neuron, we see what neuron is. Neuron is the cell of the brain, the basic functional unit. And what is plasticity? Plasticity comes from the Greek word plastikos, which means that can be molded, to be formed, to be molded. And neuroplasticity is hence the capacity of the brain, its ability to change itself in response to the changes in the environment and the activities performed. So the neurons have that ability to change their connections with other neurons because they are not physically wired. If they were physically wired, there was no other option for this information but to pass from this neuron to this neuron in the same manner. But because it is not physically wired, it has different options. The information can actually choose its own path. And this can create new connections. This can break old connections. It gives the brain a lot of flexibility to mold itself, and hence this capacity of the brain is called neuroplasticity. So the interesting fact is your brain is not fixed. Unlike it was thought, you're born with such brain. You can't help it. Your brain is like that. People sometimes say, इसमें दिमाग ही नहीं है. So your brain is not fixed. You are physically changing your brain each time, with each action, with every experience. So how does learning change the brain? It is said, practice makes a man perfect. How? How does practice make a man perfect? How is it working internally? How is each time that we practice, how does each bit of learning changes the brain? So here is a scenario. Here is the complete picture, what is happening inside. So you see the first black portion, the center one. This is a section of our neurons, and you can see these neurons very far away from each other, which means there is no connection, no information being passed on through these neurons at the moment. But when these neurons are subject to some information in the form of light, in the form of music, sound, or any other source, any information which is received by, and we have seen the different lobes, they're all receiving different information. One lobe is receiving the sound, one is receiving the visuals, so one is receiving the spatial dimension. So one single brain through different lobes is subject to so much of information from the environment. So whichever information picks and chooses whichever neuron, and that neuron picks and chooses any other neuron which is around it and starts sending that information very quickly. And you know how our reflex actions work. So you can understand what could be the speed of choosing and connecting inside the brain. It is fraction of a second, split of a second. And in that duration, the information coming quickly picks and chooses one neuron, and that neuron completely, randomly picks and chooses another neuron, and like this the whole information starts passing by. And then you see, when our brain cells are subject to the same flow of information for some time, that connection which was established for one moment is sustained. If the information is stopped, the connection also stops. But if the flow of information is constant, that connection also becomes stronger and stronger. And this strong connection is called learning. This constant flow of information, which is causing this connection inside the brain to become stronger and stronger, this is called learning. So learning helps our neurons grow out to other neurons, extend their connections to other neurons, expand. So learning, the more we learn, the more connections we make. So this is a documentary. It's a bit long, but I'll show you.
For Alison, as for every single one of us, learning something new means rearranging the way her brain works. Our brain has an astonishing 100 billion neurons, or brain cells, all connected together. Learning is about creating and strengthening pathways through these neurons for impulses of electricity. But between each and every connection in our brains, there's a tiny gap called a synapse. For any of us to learn something new, the electrical signal has to jump across this gap to continue its journey. The gap between the two brain cells is tiny, but that doesn't mean it's straightforward for a signal to get from one side to the other. For us, it's like crossing a deep ravine. And getting from one side to the other should tell us something about the way we learn. The first time a signal crosses from one brain cell to the other demands the most effort, and it's the same when we cross our ravine. The first trip across is the hardest. Having crossed the ravine once, the journeys across get easier and easier. And a similar thing happens when we learn something. To start with, learning is difficult. But as the signal crosses the gap between the brain cells again and again, we establish a more solid pathway. Sorry about that. By the time we've made the crossing over and over again, it becomes effortless. We can do it whenever we like. We've finally learned something.
So I hope the message is clear. When the information passes through that synapse, the first time it is the hardest. And when it is constantly passing, the connection has been recognized. And the next time the information passes, it takes less time, less effort. And if it continues to pass through that same connection over and over again, the effort and the time required reduces. So this is how learning goes. So moving on to the next one. So some interesting insights that if you ask your brain to worry, it becomes better at worrying. And if you ask your brain to concentrate, it becomes better at concentrating. So your brain is value neutral. It does not know what's good, what's bad. That is not the function of your brain. That is the function that, because brain is your hardware. You can use your hardware as you like. What is important to decide what's right and wrong is the software, the logic. It's like the computer. Anybody who is creating a new solution also uses the same computer. A hacker also may use the same computer. They have the different intent, but they have the same hardware. So brain is like the hardware. It does not know what's good, what's right and what's wrong. Brain will not stop you. The logic is not the function of the brain. It is the function of the soul. The soul which is driving the body. It is the software. And the particular function of the soul that decides what's right and what is wrong, the logic, is called the intellect. Brain is dimag. Intellect is buddhi. So brain is not buddhi. Having a brain does not mean you are buddhivan. Having a brain is you have a dimag. Now, whatever buddhi you apply to it, whatever intellect you apply to that brain, it works. So brain is value neutral. That is why brain is called a wonderful, guess what? Tathastu machine. Anything you tell to your brain, it does it. It does not ask you, करना चाहिए, पक्का करूं, कुछ गलत तो नहीं हो जाएगा. The brain doesn't ask that. All this reasoning is happening not in the body, not in the brain, but in the soul. So if rewiring has to happen in the brain, this logic in the soul, in the intellect has to change. We'll talk about this soul aspect maybe sometime, some other time. Today, let's understand brain completely. Now, what is the learning? Just imagine the learning capacity of a brain. How much can your brain actually remember, learn, store? So a brain usually approximately has 100 billion neurons. 1 billion is 100 crores. So it has approximately 100 crores of neurons. And each neuron can have 10,000 other neurons around it to connect with. So each neuron, so this has 100 crore neurons, and each neuron is in vicinity of 10,000 other neurons, which means one information, how much is the probability, how much is the, and if each information is considered as one bit, so how many different combinations of that connection can happen within the brain? 100 billion, which means 100 into 100 crore into, because that one information can choose 10,000 different ways to connect, to get passed on. So it is 100 billion into 10,000, which is 100 into 100 crore into 10,000. These many bits of information your brain can actually store. But when? Only if that bit of information is sustained for a longer duration. If in a second you look at the screen, the next second you start reading something, the next second you get up from the seat and walk to have water, the next second you do something, if you start changing your activities, multitasking it in such a way, do you think you'll be able to actually learn something? No. So consistency of effort, focus is very important. So as we saw, focused learning versus distracted learning. When you are focused, there is no other path that your neuron is using to pass that information. One information, one path for longer time. You saw in the video what happened. The path was laid. But what is happening when that path is interrupted by other things? It becomes a weak bridge between two neurons. So to understand the power of your brain, we have to use this power of neuroplasticity. So when we talk about brain rewiring, we are talking about self-directed neuroplasticity. One is neuroplasticity, which means the neurons are choosing any neuron and passing on the information automatically. It is not under our jurisdiction which neuron to connect to which neuron and how the information should pass on in my brain. It is not under my jurisdiction. That is an automatic reflex action of the brain. That's the normal process. But when you focus your attention on something particular, you are actually telling that neuron, don't lose this information, don't lose this connection. I'm sending you more information for the same matter. Continue to send it, and you are direct. This is called self-directed neuroplasticity. So using the power of focused attention along with the ability to apply commitment, hard work, dedication, to have your fixed choice. This is what I have to do. If any distraction comes in middle, I can say a no, no. Right now, neuroplasticity is working. No to you. So this is how you can rewire your brain to work for you and with your true self. So brain takes the shape of whatever the mind rests upon. Because who is giving the information to the brain? From where is that information coming at the first place? The brain will rewire after it receives an information. Until the brain receives an information, we saw the neurons were all scattered. Now, who triggers the brain? Who triggers the neuron to make connection? From where is that information coming? Who gives that information to the brain? It's your mind. Mind, I repeat, is not the part of the body. Mind, like the intellect, is a function of the soul. When the soul is thinking, it is using its function of mind. When the soul is weighing, logic, reasoning, it is using the function of intellect. And whatever the mind is thinking, the brain starts making connections. And when my intellect says, no, this is not to be done like this, that connection can actually change. The rewiring can actually happen. Otherwise, by default, whatever the mind is taking as information, thinking, it is automatically making connections in the brain. So, rest your mind on regrets, resentments, quarrels, or rest your mind on being grateful, being empathic, or being peaceful, whatever. Brain is physically wired and chemically changed accordingly. Otherwise, brain is not wired. But whatever you rest your mind upon starts wiring your brain. So attention and training can change actually which genes get turned on and which genes get turned off. So attention and training is not just concerned with your brain rewire. They can actually rewire your genes also. Because we have a lot of genes in our DNA. Not all of them are used at once. Not all of them are triggered in the same way, with the same thought, with the same action. Some thoughts can trigger some genes, other thoughts can trigger other genes. If you change your thoughts, you change the gene set, which is getting turned on and turned off. So our old understanding was, हमारे genes ही ऐसे हैं. Our genes dictate our life, but the new science says you have the power to activate your genes. The other genes may lie silent. So you are the master. And you are very powerful. And our brain is more capable and powerful than we actually thought. So now you have only two types of brain, trained and untrained. The untrained brains relies on the mind. Whatever you watch, whatever you hear, it starts processing. That's an untrained brain. It is completely relying on your mind. But the trained brain does not just rely on mind. Whatever it receives from the mind, through your focus, through your attention, through your intellect, through your logical reasoning, it can actually choose whether I should process this information or stop. So let us understand this power of not just the brain, but also of the soul, and train our brain accordingly. And this training is called discipline. So what is discipline? Discipline means repeating a positive activity periodically. So positive activity means automatically you have chosen what's good for you. You have already used the function of intellect, because mind is like a menu. What happens when you go to a restaurant? You are offered a menu which has so many different options that you can choose from. That restaurant, that waiter does not know your preferences. You haven't told your preferences yet. So it doesn't know your preference. So its duty is to offer you all possible options to choose from. And this is exactly what the mind does. So mind is your menu card. Mind does not know, just like the waiter does not know whether you are vegetarian or would you like to have non-veg. Are you an alcohol drinker or you don't drink alcohol? You won't look at if you're a vegetarian, you won't look at the menu card that has a non-vegetarian option and say, oh, this menu card is not good. This menu card is bad. This is evil. No, you won't say that. It's your choice. They are telling you that we have this. If you don't want, don't opt for it. Don't order it. Order what you want to have. So you won't say that the menu card is bad if it is offering you something which you don't want to have it. Similarly, we won't say mind is bad, mind is evil, mind is distracted. We won't say if it is giving you an option that this also could be done. It is its duty. Now, when you make this choice, that's your decision. So the mind offers all these options to the intellect. Now choose what you want. The intellect picks and chooses, and that choice is what the brain carries. So if this choice is made periodically and usually daily without much effort, this choice becomes a discipline. So discipline is not just a function of brain. It's not just a result of brain. It is a combination of brain and soul that's working together. So conscious repetition of a decision plus so this conscious repetition of a decision is happening not in the body, it's happening in the soul. And it is clubbed with the neuroplasticity function of ability of the brain. Together, they become discipline. So, how to make a discipline your habit? Because when what you do periodically, when it becomes your habit, it becomes natural. So, follow a discipline for some time till it becomes a habit. And once it becomes a habit, it is easy to make it your nature, like your daily routine. For example, driving. You would have spent hours to learn driving, but now that you have learned it, you can drive and talk as well, you can eat as well, you can listen to music as well, you can answer to your calls as well, and automatically you know when to apply the brake, you know when to switch on the indicator, you know when to change the gear automatically. So the interesting fact here is that neuroplasticity helps in converting a discipline into a habit. Because when it becomes a habit, I can understand that my neurons have now chosen a partner for a long-term connection. Only then it becomes a habit. Each time I follow a discipline, every day when I follow a discipline, the neurons connect with the same neurons again and again and again and again. But when they choose the same neuron each time, now they actually become partners. Even when the information is not flowing, the inclination of that connection remains. So this neuron knows that I'm going to get this information tomorrow also, and it keeps the other neuron tentatively engaged. That be ready, at this time, this information is going to come. Don't go anywhere. I'll give it to you. So that is what is called a habit. So as soon as the habit enters our neural network, the path is already laid. So the impact of neuroplasticity, when your experience coupled with attention, it leads to physical changes in the structure and the future functioning of your nervous system. So the more you consume tiny bits of information, which means that connection of neurons is very short-lived because the information is very tiny. After a few seconds, the connection will break. The next time you'd ask the same neurons to connect, it becomes harder. So it becomes harder for you to store large information, which means large information means longer connection. So your attention span and everything is linked with a longer connection. It is linked with learning. It is linked with paying attention to one particular information for a longer time. And if you start consuming tiny information, like reels changing every 10 seconds, short changing every 10 seconds, status going away after 10 seconds, your brain does not know to carry forward a connection beyond 10 seconds. So Every 10 seconds, the neural connection will break, thinking that now maybe a new information is coming up. So let me prepare myself for a new connection. This impacts our learning. So the inability to unplug from all these other options, which means the inability of brain to continue a connection, this leads to anxiety. Because your always on culture, which means I'm always on my social media, I'm always on to receive new emails, I'm always on to receive new notifications. Each time a new notification blinks or there is a beep, my attention goes. I quickly check that small bit of information. The next time, next notification, I quickly jump to the new one. So when I'm jumping from one activity to other, what's happening inside? Neurons are also jumping. And whole day, they keep on jumping. And this leads to stress. This leads to anxiety. So this is due to the allostatic load. So now we know how stress is defined by the brain, jumping from one activity to another constantly. This is how brain defines stress. So neuroplasticity is very powerful, but it is a double-edged sword. You can leverage it to break bad habits and construct good ones. But if you're not conscious, you can even solidify a bad habit leading to addiction. So the key is neuroplasticity strengthens whatever you focus on. So be mindful of your thoughts and actions. This is why we say practice makes a man perfect. So be sure of what you're practicing, because you're going to become perfect in that. Whether it is good or whether it is bad, the brain does not know. Use the function of the intellect, and intellect lies with the soul. And to access the soul, you need meditation. So through meditation, you can access the programming of the soul, change the programming of the soul, change your decision making, allow your intellect to stand on a different option this time, allow your brain to create a different connection carrying a positive information. You can change your habits. So neuroplasticity is a wonder. It's really a wonder. What you see here on the screen is the MRI scan of a 6-year-old child whose half brain has been removed. So if you see one half of the brain, you can see the brain actually. The other half you see is empty. It is filled with fluid. Fluid does not come, it does not have a structure. It's not solid, it's fluid. It's actually fluid. So you don't have it in the MRI scan. And what has happened to this child? Let's see in a video.
We are beginning to harness the brain's incredible ability to invent itself, then reinvent itself throughout life. This girl is a testament to the amazing resilience of the human brain. Young Jody Miller leads an idyllic life as a 9-year-old girl. You would never guess that she has undergone some of the most drastic surgery imaginable.
Happy birthday.
Jody's first 3 years were textbook normal.
Happy birthday, dear Jody.
Then, about 6 weeks after her 3rd birthday, a storm of epileptic seizures took control of her brain.
She couldn't use her left arm hardly at all. She could barely use the left leg, seizing a good deal of the time, multiple types of seizures.
Ordinary life became impossible. Medicines did nothing, and the seizures threatened to turn fatal. Desperate, Jodi's parents brought her to pediatric neurologist Eileen Vining.
We found her seizures were all coming from her right hemisphere. And we knew that there is virtually nothing else, nothing but Rasmussen syndrome that can produce that picture in a young child.
Rasmussen syndrome is a degenerative brain disorder that disrupts the electrical activity that makes our brains work. Tiny electrical explosions were flaring up in Jodi's right hemisphere. As seizures became almost constant, she lost control of her left side. Only one radical treatment option remained.
We knew that she was never going to have her seizures controlled with medicine, and we knew that she and her family faced taking out that half of the brain.
Okay.
Dr. Vining recommended a daring surgery called a hemispherectomy. It would be performed by pediatric neurosurgeon Ben Carson.
The whole concept of taking out half of a person's brain would seem to most people impossible. Human beings are incredible creatures with a brain that is beyond belief in terms of its capabilities, to the point where we can take half of it out and still function in a normal way.
85% of our brain consists of the cerebral cortex, which is divided into two hemispheres, each with 4 main lobes. The cortex handles many of our higher functions. Areas on both sides control thinking, movement, and sensation. But the right side controls our left side, and vice versa. Jodi would lose almost all of her right hemisphere, and the cavity would fill with cerebrospinal fluid. The operation has to be performed with great precision to avoid damaging the parts of the brain that control Jodi's life functions, like heartbeat and breathing. The surgery went flawlessly.
What we're looking at here is an image, an MRI, that was done on Jodi after her surgery. And what it shows us is the fact that we removed her entire right hemisphere. And what we're able to see here is indeed her very normal left hemisphere and all the beautiful gyri of her cortex. And we can see right down the middle, the right hemisphere that was there is now replaced by fluid.
But how could Jodi function normally with only one hemisphere? It's because of a miraculous ability of the brain called plasticity. Our brains can actually change shape, creating new connections between neurons or brain cells to replace lost or damaged ones. Jodi's left brain started reconnecting almost immediately.
At least as good as this. And if I remember, he wore pink just like you. This young lady had half her brain removed, went home, I guess maybe 10 days later, and was already walking. She was ambulating. She was able to walk out of the hospital. And that's because her left hemisphere had such resilience, such plasticity. It was able to say, okay, something needs to move her left leg. Whoa. You gonna open it? Okay.
Jodi continues to work on training her brain to overcome the slight paralysis in her left side.
But enough, now that's very good. You need to do that stretching stuff, honey. You know that, don't you? Are you doing enough of it? You think so? Yeah. Atomic sentence.
The human brain is just an awesome thing, because every time I look at it, I say to myself, this is the thing that makes this person unique. It still is just such a wonderful thing to find a young person whose life now can move on, who's no longer having seizures, who's developing in a normal fashion. I take the good with the bad, and I say, this is a bad thing, potentially, that we have to do for an extremely good cause.
So, in this video, we saw how this ability of the brain to rewire itself can actually work, and only one hemisphere can rewire itself in such a way that it can perform the functions of both the brain, both the hemispheres. So if half of the brain work for full body, imagine what full brain can do, how much work we can actually perform using our complete brain, right? Only if we know. But now see how this can also go horribly wrong. So this is another video.
A tourist attraction in his native Indonesia for all the wrong reasons. This toddler on the island of Sumatra, famous for his nicotine addiction. Aldi Rizal started smoking when he was just 18 months old. Now he's hooked and on 40 a day. And don't think of denying him his fix. The toddler goes crazy, screaming, slamming his head on the floor, even getting sick if he doesn't get his 2 packs a day. His father, Mohammed, who introduced him to smoking, has to find the equivalent of $5 a day to pay for the fags. He insists that his son is healthy. Luckily, Aldi is now in rehab under Indonesia's National Commission Child Protection Supervision.
So if you rest your brain on wrong habits, it becomes an expert in that. And if you allow your brain to rewire, you can have wonders in your life. Now there's a new thing, a new term which was introduced in the Oxford Dictionary recently, just 2 years ago. That's brain rot. Now what is brain rot? For example, the food rots. Similarly, this is the brain rot. So it is the supposed deterioration of one's brain, or its mental or intellectual state due to overconsumption of trivial and unchallenging online content. Just like if you start eating junk, it gets stuck in your intestine. You're not able to completely digest it. It stays there. It creates layer on layer within your intestine, your stomach. And what does it do over there? It stays in your gut. It starts rotting. It's not giving you any nutrition. It is just useless for your body, but it is in your body. It starts making you obese. Similarly, when trivial or unchallenged online content or unuseful content, I'm saying online because nowadays usually the trivial information comes through online content, but it is any other content which is trivial, unchallenged, not of any use, but it is just coming on and on and on. You're not using it. It is just accumulating in your brain. It is utilizing that memory of your brain which could have been used for other functions. So this condition is called a brain rot, which means when some important information comes in your brain, it is looking for, hello, which neuron is free, but every neuron is busy with some trivial information exchange. So the useful information has no option. So the symptoms then become brain fog. Sometimes you're just stuck. You don't know what to do with this information. You don't know what your brain should do now. Reduced concentration, difficulty with deep work and meaningful tasks, because all the neurons are saying, don't give me overwork. I'll only work for these many seconds because this is what you have trained me to do. If you tell me to stick to one information for 10 minutes, this is too much for me. I could change. I've been used to doing so many different works within those 10 minutes. So I can't do one single chunk of work or task for 10 minutes. Don't ask me to concentrate. The neurons start reacting in this way. So the symptoms are struggles in building or maintaining relationship due to lack of focus. So when you're talking to a person, you're not actually listening to that person completely. While talking to the person, you're thinking of other things. And the person starts feeling that you are not concentrating on what they are saying. And then they say, ध्यान नहीं देते हो, ध्यान से नहीं सुनते हो, कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता मैं क्या बोल रही हूँ, क्या बोल रहा हूँ. So this brain rot term is the new word introduced in the Oxford Dictionary recently in 2024. So how to now understanding the magnanimous capacity of the brain and how it is functioning. Now, how do we work with it? How do we train our mind? So one way to do that is neuro-associative conditioning. What is this? When you repeatedly do a task with a particular object, your brain associates that task and that object. For example, so it is said neurons that fire together, wire together. This is not multitasking. It's not that you do this task while you do this also, you do this also, you drive also, you look at your mobile also, reply to your, WhatsApp and Facebook comments. No, this is not what it means. It means, for example, you are driving and listening. So your eyes are stuck on the driving, but your ears are listening to a specific song. So two other sources of information are supplying information at the same time. So your neurons, the neurons which are being fired by the visual and the neurons being fired by the sound, they are firing together, having different connections, but they are fired together. So next time you listen to that song, you are reminded of driving on that road, that trip where you heard this song several times, repeated the playlist, and that road reminds you of the song. This is how it works. So you can leverage this property of the brain. Tie one of the positive habits with something that you are already doing. So one neuron connection already exists. Now, each time you trigger that neuron connection which is already existing, add discipline to it. Start a new positive habit at the same time so that each time you repeat this mundane activity, that positive thought, that neuro-associative conditioning works. For example, you're drinking water. It's a mundane activity. You will drink a glass of water every hour or every 2 hours without fail. No matter how busy you are, you will definitely walk and drink water and come back. Now, wire a positive habit with it. For example, I will not talk and speak on phone while drinking water. Rather, I will just reflect on the past hour, do a self-auditing. How was my hour? What went wrong? What I should not carry forward to the next hour. I will focus on myself. I'll be more aware of how the water I'm drinking is, going inside my esophagus, my gut, how it is recharging all my cells. I will be more conscious. So each time you drink water, you remind yourself what you have to do while you are drinking water. And that mindfulness also becomes a habit then, because drinking water is a habit. You have no choice. So when you are clubbing that activity with something which is obvious, that also becomes obvious. This is called neuro-associative conditioning, or in short, we say NAC, N-A-C. So how you can use it? Today, let's try this out. Link meditation before sleep. Usually what happens before we are sleeping, we check all the messages, reply to all the messages, carry our phones on the bed till the time we're actually sleeping. We keep on checking, we keep on watching reels, and then when we think, okay, enough now, let me sleep. No. Bed and meditation, link them. The moment you go on the bed to sleep, associate the neurons to meditate. So each time you want to sleep, you will automatically switch to meditation, but meditation will not switch to sleep because you can meditate at other times also. So it is not that whenever you meditate you should sleep, because you can meditate while waking up also, you can meditate before sleeping also, you can meditate after your lunch also. So meditation does not trigger sleep, but sleep definitely triggers meditation if you only do meditation before sleeping, nothing else. So this is how you can use one particular connection to trigger another action. So the steps, how you can leverage this conditioning. The first is to identify the trigger. Second, introduce a new response, that now this trigger will associate me to this new response. Then repeat that association again and again to reinforce it, and reward yourself when you recognize progress, because your brain recognizes rewards. This is also one function of the brain. So how do you do it? What are the guidelines to follow this 4-step procedure? Stay consistent. If you become inconsistent, the chain breaks. Be patient. This association will not happen overnight, or just doing it 3 times or 4 times will not have this association ready. Be patient. You will need to repeat this cycle many times sometimes to break the old habit, because breaking this, what is this knack doing? It is breaking the old habit and making new. So it is doing 2 things. So you have to be patient. And visualize success. When you reward yourself, you visualize success. You actually experience success, not just visualize, but also experience success. So that experience also becomes a new information for you. And positive self-talk. Continue positive self-talk. Don't let yourself lose in creating new habits. I will do it. Yes, I can do it. If this person can do, this person can do, why can't I? So instead of having very high peaks of effort sometime and then no effort at times, it is better to have consistent small steps towards success. So stay consistent is the first key. Be patient. Things will take time. Breaking may take time. Making may take time. Both may take time. So be patient and visualize success. Whenever you see something happening, something better, today I'm better than yesterday. So I can extrapolate that and see, okay, I can do it. If I've done it better than yesterday, I can actually achieve it. Visualize that success and practice positive self-talk. Water that thought of success each time you think about that process. So start small. Don't take a very big task. Don't ask your brain to completely rewire overnight. Start with small targets. Track your progress in that small target. Visualize success often, and some associations that you can easily make. So these are some suggestions that you can start with to experiment this conditioning. Before sleep, associate meditation. Give away your phones before you sleep. Keep them off, keep them away. And just as you go on the bed, 5 minutes to sleep, meditate. Associate bed with sleep. Don't associate bed with work from home. If you want to work from home, sit on a chair or a table. Associate bed with sleep so that you have sound sleep. Otherwise, what happens is, if bed is equal to sleep, is equal to eating, is equal to work from home, so when you actually want to sleep, the bed doesn't know What am I actually for? Am I for sleeping? Am I for eating? Am I for working? What am I? What is my purpose? So the bed doesn't, that coming on the bed confuses your brain. अभी क्या होने वाला है next? खाना आने वाला है या नींद आने वाली है या लैपटॉप आने वाला है? Your brain does not know what's the next activity, because you have done all these activities on your bed. So associate bed with sleep so that you get good sleep. You can sleep, you can enter a deep sleep cycle fast, because your brain knows bed, let me start the function of sleep. Associate books with focus study. Don't inculcate the habit of reading online, studying online, unless there is an online course like this one. If you want to actually do some research, do some deep reading, if you have a document in soft copy, take a printout. You can make notes. So associate books with focus study. Relaxation, associate that with screen free. I'm fed up of this long working hour. I want to relax. Let me start the Netflix. No, that's not relaxation. Relaxation means your mind, the speed of your mind reduces. But when you watch a Netflix episode, does your mind start activity reduce? Or does the emotions changing very fast in a movie also change your, the way you're thinking, your mood frequently? So that is not relaxation, that is stimulation. Associate mobile with a purpose. I will use this mobile when I have to talk, when I have to message, when I have to see my email, not otherwise. Associate, limit the use. Associate free time with families. So whenever you think of a holiday, think of family. Think of your hobby. Think of meeting your friends. Right? Associate morning time with some physical activity. So this is how you strategize your association, so that one activity automatically leads you to another. Okay. So let us just do a little bit of breathing, deep breathing, slow down our mind, stabilize our brain, and let us think of which particular neuro-associative conditioning will I do for myself. So let's have a minute of pause. I gave you some suggestions, easy ones to follow, but you can have your own, a new one. So in this minute, just let us completely relax our mind and brain, minimize the use of brain so that you can actually think of creating a new connection. How would you like to rewire your brain? To which activity would you like to rewire your brain? Let us spend a minute. And now, when I have visualized my next step towards a better life with this new habit, I remind myself, I am not my brain. I am the master of the brain, the master of my body, a shining star at the center of the forehead. I, the star at the center of the forehead, Look at my brain. I see it as a perfect instrument given to me to make things work. I have great ideas to make my life better. I have that wisdom to make the right choice. I know that I am peaceful and I know what to do to experience that peace. I find peace with myself. I find peace in cooperating with others, in helping others. I find peace in small acts of kindness. And I train my brain to do that. Each time I want peace, I ask my brain to think slow. Each time I want peace, I look around. Whom can I help at this moment? Who is in need? I don't think about my own problems at that time, but I start thinking of solutions. I send the information of solutions to my brain. I see it performing those solutions for me. And I see my life becoming better and better. Om Shanti. Om Shanti.
Thank you, sister. We have, I think, two questions in the chat box, both from Poonam. First question is that, while you partially answered it during the presentation, but I'll read it out. How do you explain that neurons of a particular lobe pick information pertaining to that lobe? First question is this. And second question is, what are your thoughts on multitasking beyond browsing the online content?
So when I say that different lobes are for different functions, for example, the occipital lobe, it means that the connections coming into that lobe is from that particular organ, right? So the neurons coming towards that lobe are more from that particular organ. And there are different, so that anatomy of the brain, and if you go into those deep medical science, it is, you know, the way the information bringing neurons are connected, they are focused in that area. So your brain, if you see your brain, you don't see those lobes in the brain. The brain is not divided physically into lobes. These are functional areas, which means one set of neurons coming towards the brain, they are focused in that area. So this area of brain will perform more of these functions. So these are functional divisions of the brain, not physical. If you see a human brain, like if you can hold it in your hand in the laboratory, you don't see those lobes in the brain. It is functional areas of the brain. And then the next one is multitasking beyond browsing online. Definitely, multitasking beyond online content is also multitasking. That also makes your neurons jump from one activity to another. So if like you are eating, and then while eating, then after having one, one bite, you start doing something else, then you come back, you eat another one, you start doing something else. If you start doing this multitasking, you will not be able to enjoy, completely understand what you're eating or completely doing that, because your brain is switching from one activity to another. And each time your brain switches, it pays some attention penalty, which is called brain switching penalty. So then your activity is not sustained. Your neurons are not in connection to other neurons in the same way for that particular time. Then that same neuron has picked so many other neurons for different activities. So it gets tired. If you are made to run, if someone asks you, go to the kitchen and bring a glass of water, you bring a glass of water. Then they say, oh, bring one spoon sugar also. You go and you bring one spoon sugar. They say, what about lemon? I want lemon also. Then you go again in the kitchen. What will you say? Tell me at once. Now I'll go and I'll bring everything at once. Why am I jumping from? Why am I running from? So you get tired. Similarly, neurons also get tired if you make them jump back and forth, doing some activity, then going back to that one, then doing something else, then going back to that one. So the neurons, they can't complain in words, but how do they respond? You start getting fatigued, they start getting tired, they start dying, and creating new ones needs some time. So this is how multitasking affects the brain.
Thank you, Sister. Poonam, I hope your question is answered. Yeah, she's so good with it. Then another question from Pallavi. She asks, are there any methods to encourage neuron connections to improve memory?
Yes, definitely. As we said, learning. Learning means let that information flow towards your brain constantly. So when you have to improve memory, retain, choose that time where you know your brain is not going to jump to another activity. Give that quality time for activities that involve memory. For mundane things, like you have 5 minutes to go somewhere, you can quickly complete a task, that's okay. But if you know, I just have 5 minutes to go, let me not start something which I need to retain. Let me do other mundane work in those 5 minutes, and let me start learning activity that requires memorizing in a time when I know I can actually fix my brain on something for a longer duration. So you can allow your brain to rest on that information, your mind to rest on that information for a longer time. You know that you won't have to jump to another activity in the next 5 minutes. So plan your activities in such a way.
Right. I hope, Poonam, this addresses your question. Yeah. Right. So any other questions? And if you want to ask, you can raise your hand also, and I can unmute if you want to personally ask that question. Otherwise, you can type in chat. Okay. So I think there are no questions further. But Sister, I found this today's session extremely insightful. I learned a lot of new concepts, and also done a bit of introspection that where we are doing not so right, because I could understand what brain can do, but it is also important to understand whether brain should do that particular activity, and then rewire the brain, etc. And the stress and anxiety is something that we are generating ourselves. And if we slow down, if we don't jump from one activity to another and let the brain rest and build that connection, I think we will be in a much better situation. So thank you very much. And we would like to host you some other time also. Your previous session was also greatly appreciated, and this one also was really, really insightful. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, audience.
Have a good meditative night and sleep.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Sister.
Thank you.